Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Kakadash, double honors and salutations to the elders and apostles of Great Stone, to the Akim Akwath throughout the four corners of the earth, holding on in sincerity and in truth, with diligence of mind, holding on to the gospel of Lord Amashak Yahweh Shai. This is Brahman Ashad with DC Camp, short lesson for the hopeful elect. As you can see on the screen, the symptoms of Babylon crumbling is becoming more evident on a daily basis. And you know what it means, man. You know what it means when the so-called First Amendment comes out of attack. All right, and it's just that the elites are losing the narrative, and they will do whatever it takes to have their minions uh, attack the people. When the system of Esau's oppression can no longer flow with ease, it becomes a disease for the elites. That's the reason why they have to be heavy-handed. All right, to have the people confirm. So this news clip, was talking, it refers to a so-called retired police officer that posted a meme on the killing of Charlie Kirk, and he used one of the president's previous statements, and that landed him in jail for about a month. Because of the system can no longer handle uh, satire, can no longer handle the truth. So it's just what happens. When the serpent cannot be a serpent as much as the serpent wants to be. The serpent is losing its character, and now it's it's falling apart, man. The whole narrative of Esau's system is falling apart. So yeah, you could look it up online. I'll just read the scripture real quick from the book of Second Ezra, chapter 5. Second Ezra, chapter 5. I'm going to start from verse 1. Nevertheless, as coming the tokens, behold, the days shall come, that they which dwell upon the earth shall be taken in a great number, and the way of truth shall be hidden, and the land shall be barren of faith. So it's just gonna get worse. It's getting to that level where the momentum is gonna be picking up at you know breakneck speed. So it's gonna be total chaos, total disaster for a lot of people that are not firmly rooted in the words of the Lord Amashiach Yahushai, all right, because the Lord is speeding things up, all right, for the Lord to speed things up, a lot of people are going to have to bear the brunt of the Most High's wisdom, or the Most High's wrath. So now you can see, what can happen when you make a post online, and powers that be don't like it. They have to use the fear of the zombies as ammunition to come after whoever makes the statement, whoever makes the post. And that's one thing that the elites are worried about, man. They want that influence and power to abide with them forever. But the Lord has said, you know what, those days are numbered, and they can feel the agility, you know, losing strength. The force is getting weaker and weaker and weaker. The lies that they tell the people is no longer having the effect anymore because the Lord is pouring that spirit of truth heavily into the system. That spirit of contamination is losing its power, and then the spirit of truth is gaining steam. So now you know why they're pushing hard this AI agenda, all right? So you know how it is, man. The world shall be barren of faith. For those that that have faith in Esau's system, man. That's gonna be to their own demise. It's gonna be a double whammy. The faith of those that claim to be Christians and Israelites is gonna be tested, man. The faith in the government system is gonna be tested, and now a lot of people are no longer having faith in the so-called government anymore because they've seen the the lack of empathy. They've seen the lack of accountability. All right. So now everything is just on like autopilot mode, man. All right. And a lot of Edomites are not happy. That their system is crumbling. And the state of Tennessee, it seems as if the Lord just put a spotlight on this state, man. A lot of things in that state is just crumbling apart. Whether it's the so-called agenda of the so-called state troopers working with ICE to go along with this immigration agenda, and then you had the DUI case, and then you have the games they're playing with the what you call it with the laws as per the First Amendment and all that stuff. It's just piling up. Everything is just falling apart. The elites want more people in jail and all that stuff. So I'll play the clip and then I get some more scriptures.
A Perry County man arrested over a Facebook meme criticizing President Trump is now a free man. Good evening and welcome to News 2 at 6. I'm Bob Mueller.
And I'm Haley Wilgus. This is a story we first reported yesterday on News 2 at 6. Larry Bouchard was arrested and charged with threatening mass violence at a school after sharing this Facebook post following Charlie Kirk's assassination. News 2 just confirmed those charges have been dropped.
This is Kelly Milan is live in Perry County.
Yeah, so that's what you need to be aware of. How can you claim that somebody threatened mass violence, but then you turn around and drop the charges? So it just shows you something is wrong with the system. Whoever filed the charges and whoever approved it, they need to be held accountable, but that's not going to happen. So now the so-called public have to dole out funds, for a lawsuit. So that's what they do. They use the system to intimidate, but then now the public, public's taxpayers' funds to to cover their behind. But those days are numbers. Those days are numbers that are about to. Those days are limited. All right, let's just keep it simple, man, because it's gonna get ugly in the street, and very soon. Those days of just throwing people behind bars and then dropping the charges. Those days are just gonna be out of these days are gonna expire. All right, that's just one thing to look forward to, and it's gonna be ugly. Just so much. You like to say, want to paint a grim picture about the demise of Esau society, but hey, those that want to know more can always read the scriptures. That's just one thing. We already told you the violence is going to increase. They're going to be invading one another. Scripture talks about a man shall be made an offender for a word of truth. So, yeah, criticism, it's one thing that the scripture is filled with, man. The Lord criticized his people, the Israelites, for being disobedient, you know, from being hard necked and stiff necked. The Lord criticizes the elect, for not tightening up at certain stages, of that development, what chastening of the Lord, okay, chastening of the Lord. So it's a requirement. It's a requirement that these things take place. But Esau cannot withstand the chastening of the Lord. He cannot withstand the mockery of the Lord. So he has to lash out. So it's really, really over for Esau. And there's nothing he can do. So I'll just get the second precept. Let me hurry up and wrap this up. Second Ezra 5 and 2. But iniquity shall be increased above that which now thou seest, right? But iniquity shall be increased above that which now thou seest, or that thou hast heard long ago. So things are going to get horrible, you know, horrible in these last days. And there's nothing that Esau can do to prevent the Lord from shaking his kingdom. All right. So as let's see, Psalm 64 and 8 says, "So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves; all that see them shall flee away." All right. So a lot of folks are not gonna have faith in the so-called government system, man. They don't want nothing to do with this so-called fake democracy. Folks have realized that they don't really need to be dependent on the federal government anymore because they've proven to be incompetent and they lack accountability. It's just empty words and frauds. When it's time to take a bribe, they're very, very excited. There is no transparency. It's all an illusion. So when the folks stop drinking the Kool-Aid, all of a sudden they're deemed as conspiracy theorists, disillusioned and all that stuff, man. So it's the journey of Babylon, going downhill. So it's a matter of time that the people will see the full-blown effects of the Most High condemning Babylon. All right. So we get another precept. It's from the book of Proverbs, chapter 28 and verse 10. And it reads, "Whoso causeth the righteous to go astray in an evil way, he shall fall himself into his own pit." All right. So that's the reason why Esau has to be persecuted by the Lord. All right. Because when you force the poor, into a life of crime, a life of abject poverty, a life of depression, a life of drug addiction, a life of self-hate, the Lord frowns at that, and then what do you think is going to be the judgment? What do you think is going to be the judgment? So that's the reason why, the Messiah has cautioned his servants, to watch how to rule over the flock. Okay, so, because you'll not be held, you not be held without accountability. So you just gotta pray, man. As the servant of the Lord Hamashaki Yahushai, that's you found faithful despite the upheavals in the ministry. All right, you don't want to be the source of someone's downfall in the ministry. You know, so you have to be able to to speak boldly without reservation, without condemnation of thy works. Okay, so that's just as simple as it gets. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 10: "Whoso causeth the righteous to go astray in an evil way, he shall fall himself into his own pit. But the upright shall have good things in possession." So that's what we all are aspiring for. That's what we're striving for. good possession. That's salvation, man. The spirit of truth, the spirit of faith. When your faith is solid, stable. There's a lot you can learn in the moments of your difficulties. All right, you're not easily carried away by the flood of lies, so you're able to anchor yourself, to the spirit of truth. All right. So when you use the spirit of truth to mock a system built on lies, you expect a retaliation. So it's just part of it. It's part of it that you have to understand the ins and outs of the gospel. Okay, so Isaiah chapter 13. I'm gonna read verses 1 and 2. It says, "The burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amoz did see, lift ye up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand, that they may go into the gates of the nobles." All right. So when you're preaching the word of the Lord, man, these elites get upset. They get nervous. They start to, you know, have a chat, chattering among themselves, man, how they're going to approach, how they're going to attack the prophets, how they're going to attack the Israelites. You know, they start coming up with all types of legislation and executive orders and all types of narratives to prevent the gospel from spreading. At the end of the day, they end up losing because it's the Most High's words, man. The Most High's words cannot be held captive. That's one thing they fail to realize, man. That the words that we speak are not our words. They come from the higher power. They come from a higher source. They come from a sovereign source, someone that's above sovereign. And Esau is so upset, he's nervous because he doesn't have the power to prevent the word of the Lord from coming to pass. He cannot stop prophecy. All right. Now they have to be they have to fully pull out every trick they have. Whether it's to use chaos to distract the people, so they don't have to focus on the gospel. They want to do it on a constant basis, continuing to distract the people so they can't focus on the gospel. And the day, man, they still lose because the truth always rises to the top. All right, there is no smoke screen for the truth. All right, it's just there. It's right in front of everybody. All right, so we're gonna read another precept. Psalms chapter 159. That's like 109. Psalms chapter 109, verse 29. He said, "Let mine adversaries be clothed with shame, and let them cover themselves with their own confusion as with a mantle." All right. So, yeah. So nothing but shame is coming for these henchmen of the elites, man. They're gonna have to deal with the consequences of their action for coming against the gospel, for coming against the words of Yahweh Shem Shai. So they can't help themselves. Scripture talks about they cannot get any rest until they've done evil, but they don't really understand that that's a consequence for coming against righteousness. The men of the Lord have been through that testimony. Now it's time for Esau to go through that too. The power structure of Esau has to be inspected. When they cannot pass inspection, now they have to scramble. Now they're scrambling to keep everyone in line because folks are rebelling against the system with all type of tactics, whether it's true satire, whether it's true uh, investigative journalism, whether it's true the preaching of gospel, whether it's true the legal proceedings and revelations or research. Everything is becoming evidently clear. And Esau cannot slow it down, man. He will have to tear down the whole system to prevent that from ever gaining heavy momentum. But that's neither here nor there, man. The Most High has already said that, what, Esau is going to be forced to condemn himself with his self-inflicted wounds, but then the Lord will still have to finish him off. All right. So I'll just get one more precept and wrap it up. So Isaiah chapter 24 and 10, it says, "The city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up, that no man may come in." Okay, so that's the spirit that's lingering around Babylon now, man. The spirit of shutdown. Yeah, so a lot of people are upset, they're sad, but it's necessary to happen. It's part of things that's going to happen for salvation of the Israelites to take place. All right, so-called Negroes, so-called Latinos, so-called Native Americans have to go through the straight gate, and the shutdown of Babylon has to be a requirement for us to accept. Okay, so the city of confusion has to be taken out of the way. And verse 11 says that there's crying for wine in the streets. There is a crying for wine in the streets. All joy is darkened, the mirth of the land is gone. Because when you turn on this app on TikTok, man, all you see is just folks, you know, making reviews for restaurants, man, restaurant owners, man. They're begging and asking people to come try their food, man. You got influencers, you know, trying to make people come around to the restaurants and buy the food and all that stuff. It's giving promotions to all these resorts and hotels, all that, attractions and all that. But the Mosai is pulling the plug on this place, man. So the days of folks being able to promote their businesses to be profitable to survive another monthly cycle, those days are becoming fewer and fewer and fewer. So you just have to realize, man, it's the demise of Esau's system, man. The Mosai is pulling us away from Esau's system, but our people want to hold on. So we have to prepare ourselves for the Mosai to pull us away from Babylon. So that way we do not get attached. You don't want to be like Lot's wife. You don't want to be held down with the cords of iniquity. So you gotta pray that as the Mosai is pulling you away from Babylon, that you are able, to accept the Mosai's decree, because your faith is much more precious than Babylon put together. Your faith should not be based on the city of confusion. So yeah, that's the that was the point of this lesson, man. When you bring out posts about the city of confusion, all of a sudden people have an knee-jerk reaction, and the elites, what do they do to take advantage of it? So that's exactly what happened to this man. When you expose a system of confusion, you get threatened with all types of attacks. So, Baratuza, being edified, just be prepared, man. Everything you post online is being reviewed by Esau. There are certain keywords that are plugged into the AI system. So everything you say is recorded and it can be easily taken out of context, so that way they can use that opportunity to scare the people into submission. So just be ready, be prepared in the spirit of Habashak Yahushai, and defend the gospel to the end. Shalom.